Okay, so the purpose of this video is to show you how you can go from one file system to another without having to do a full reinstallation of your distribution. There's been a couple of questions around this, and I just want to clear this up. It doesn't mean that we are going to do an in-place conversion from, let's say, ext to XFS or to F2FS. The idea of this is that you must have a backup, or at least two partitions. So you're going to have your from and your to. And the idea being that we are going to copy the data over, in effect, from one file system to the other, and then we just redo the boot sector. So if we have a look at the partitions I've currently got on here, might be a little bit small on your screen here, but let's have a look. I've currently got Ubuntu running XFS. I've got 𝗚𝗏𝗁, and that is running also XFS, and then I've got an exFAT partition which I just use as a temporary partition. Got another NVMe in here with a ZFS partition. We've got SSD which is running Windows. Recently I installed this on here. Another hard drive used by Windows for now, generally for game benchmarking, and then I've got a BTRFS drive set up for backups. The reasons for each file system is you guys got to remember sometimes there's not always just one file system for all purposes. Know what the strengths and weaknesses are of each file system, and then you make a decision what you want to take from that. And that's the awesome thing about using other operating systems other than Windows. With Windows you kind of limited to FAT32 and NTFS, and maybe an exFAT as well. But the point is this, is that you're limited. NTFS is okay. It's not the best at anything, it's not the fastest, it's not the most stable, it's not the most reliable. I've had a lot of corruption issues with it, and we all know about the check files that you get that no one knows anything to do with, and they just delete them anyways and then wonder why their computer blue screens and has issues every now and then, because those files were corrupted and they were deleted because they didn't know where they went. Research what file system you want. I know this is a bit of a ramble, but I need to tell you this up front so that you can understand why I've chosen what I've chosen. So I'm just going to quickly guide you through what I've done. In this example, I've got Ubuntu and 𝗚𝗏𝗁 running on here. I had Xero on here, and then I installed Ubuntu on 2 nights ago for some benchmarks between Ubuntu, 𝗚𝗏𝗁, Xero, and Windows that I've been doing. I don't like reinstalling everything from scratch, so that's why this video has come about. So in my experience, the reason I've gone for XFS is in over 10 years using it as my daily driver, not once, not on any computer, not on any server, not on any device have I ever had any corruption whatsoever with XFS. It is not just stable, it is absolutely bulletproof. And I think there is one that is probably better than XFS is, and that is ZFS. ZFS is nowhere nearly as fast as XFS, but it is also a lot more it's got a lot more features than what XFS has. It's got full-on checksumming. It's got compression. It supports all the different levels of RAID. ZFS is my go-to file system if you aren't worried about speed and you want data integrity and your data is important to you. So excellent use case would be your media center, your home photos, your videos, any one of those type of things. There is no equal to ZFS at this point in time. So that is why I actually have a 2 terabyte here with running on a ZFS partition. The machine that I'm running here is powerful enough to handle the compression on here at maximum, so I've got no issues with it. So the layout that I've got here is, I've got for the home and for the roots, I'm using XFS. My temporary partition here I've got is exFAT, and the reason I've got exFAT is because I want to share a fast file system that is optimized for flash-based storage between Windows and my Ubuntu or my 𝗚𝗏𝗁 or my Xero. So I have this sort of as a partition that can be read by both. I understand I can use NTFS, but NTFS performance is shoddy at best. Whether you're on Windows or not, it's just hopeless. When I say hopeless, understand what I'm saying. I just got crapped out by some Windows users this week, and they said to me, "Oh, I've got no problems with Windows performance. It's brilliant. It's beautiful." And I'm sure they're happy. But very often, 9 times out of 10, people don't know how bad their systems are because they've got nothing to compare to. So it's not a personal affront or an attack on these people. It's just There's different types of people out there, and I'm one of those who likes to experiment with all the different things. I'm a numbers guy. And I might read something on a website, but I don't take it as gospel until I try it myself, and I know for myself then, is it legit or isn't it? I'm not one to vouch for synthetic benchmarks. So this Windows user is happy with his Windows performance. Great, good for him. I've tested it between Windows and XFAT, NTFS and XFAT and other file systems. No, NTFS sucks, and that's putting it mildly. Right, lastly, one more reason why I run XFS and I don't use BTRFS for my root anymore is, let's go have a look at my backup partition. So I'm using Timeshift to store my backups, and the way Timeshift works is you can either do a full system backup, which means the entire partition or the entire drive is backed up, which is great. I've got a 1 terabyte hard drive, which you saw over here. It's this one over here, and it's running BTRFS. I mount it, and every day it will do a backup. This is different to the Garuda type snapshots that you see, or on Arco or on Xero. It has the BTRFS auto snapshot tools. Those work differently. Those take snapshots and place the snapshots in the root of the file system. So the problem that I have with that is, what that means is in the root you'll have a .snapshots folder, and that snapshots folder, if your file system gets corrupted, those snapshots can basically be virtually useless to you. If you lose that drive, you've lost all your data. So that's not what the purpose, that's not what snapshots were made for. The snapshots were designed that if you have any problems with an update, or you deleted a file, or you stuffed up your system, the idea is to quickly restore back to a previous snapshot, and then you can continue. Well, in my case, every year for the last 5 years, normally I give BTRFS a try for about a month as my daily driver, and I really do want BTRFS to work. I've got high hopes for it, and I think it's got excellent potential. However, every year for the last 5 years, I've had some sort of corruption or some sort of issues. Where I'm based, I have a lot of power failures, and the UPSs don't always hold for long enough, the batteries die, or whatever else the case may be. I've had people say, yes, but you should be running ECC memory. ECC memory isn't going to protect me from a power failure. So people want to defend BTRFS and the corruption I've had, that's fine, but that's not the point. The point is this, is if XFS is exposed to the exact same conditions and it doesn't have issues, then in my opinion, BTRFS has no excuse whatsoever for having corruption issues. It is designed to handle power failures, theoretically, yet in my opinion it does not have this waxed, it's buggy, and it's not stable. There's another, if you do some research, you can go ahead and do a search on DuckDuckGo. Have a look. I think I saw 1 or 2 Reddit posts. I also saw on some other forums where other users have, one of the users mentioned there that the difference with BTRFS is on Pop! OS, he was copying a folder on fast NVMe storage. One of the comments there was that they were copying a large folder on NVMe storage, and it took 5 minutes on BTRFS on Pop! OS. Then booting up on Fedora, it took under a minute, and booting up on Arch, the exact same partitions from A to B, same storage, same devices, on Arch takes around 40 seconds. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't go around calling a file system stable when you can have a 30-second, a 1 minute, and a 5-minute difference in time on the exact same file system. And Pop! OS uses a recent kernel. I think this was done on 5.16. Same with Arch, same with, I don't know what Fedora was. How can you have such a large variance? 5-fold increase in performance. You know, and up to almost 10 times faster than on Arch. So one of the comments I saw there, oh no, it was still flushing the buffers. No, it wasn't flushing the buffers. It was finished writing. The data was done. It was finished. There was nothing further to be written. And that to me is the biggest problem. It's that erratic performance. And now you'll get the Pop! OS user, just like I had the Windows user, who says, oh, but I've got no problems on Pop! OS. I'm not here to trash PopOS. I respect the guys and they're doing a brilliant job. My point is this is about the inconsistency and erratic behavior of BTRFS, which all these companies are trying to push as being, well, the best thing since sliced bread. And you don't know any better. You're using PopOS, you're happy with the performance. It's only now when you can reboot and try different distros on that same file system that you begin to see that its performance is actually rubbish. And that's the point. You know, you go to Phoronix forum, do the benchmarks, great, good benchmarks. But what is that benchmark? All done on the same distribution. Well, how about testing different distributions? I know sometimes you will see benchmarks like it, but they're only CPU based. We don't generally test, or you don't often see tests which test file system performance from one distro to the next. And in my experience, ext4, XFS, ZFS are all generally within a couple of % of each other, no matter what distribution they're using. BTRFS is all over the show. It is absolutely scattered all over the show. I know it sounds like I'm biased, but I've got no reason to trash BTRFS when I really wanted to be the be-all and end-all. For me, the biggest reason I love BTRFS is the fact that it has compression on the fly, and ZSTD compression specifically. Right, so let's get started. Okay, so we're going to boot up using the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 hard drive we created in one of the previous videos. Go, let's see. As you can see, it boots up quite quickly. We're going to do a fresh installation of Xero. Just select the basics. I also tend to choose custom installation. I always choose my partitions and where the data is going to go. So manual partitioning, I think that's what it's called. We select our ext4 partition. I'm just going to format it again, put our / in. And now we choose our EFI partition. This is the menu that you'll be presented with every time you boot up your machine. We're going to format that as well. Okay, let's just speed up this next process here. Okay, it's beginning to rain in the background here, so sorry about the noise. But we boot up off our new install. And I'm not fast forwarding this so you can see exactly how long it takes to boot up. Right, so we have booted up. Let's go ahead and have a look at our partitions again. See everything's up and running. As you can see, here's our ext4 partition. There's our XFS Ubuntu one that we resized. So we've got two identical sized partitions. And you'll understand shortly why I wanted to actually do this and why so forget about this free space right now. The idea is I wanted two identical sized partitions to show the difference in free space between different file systems. And these are the type of tests you can do yourself. When deciding on what file system you want to run, have a look at which one wastes the least. It's not just about compression or always performance. Sometimes you've got a small SSD and maybe you've got a small or a weak CPU that doesn't handle compression very well. So the idea of this is then maybe look for a more efficient file system. Personally, XFS has normally resulted on the most amount of free space for me, but you know, test it out for yourself and see what your results are. Anyway, so let's have a look here. We've got basically the full install. We're looking at 15 gig down to 15 gig the difference there. So 5% full. Right, we are now going to do the next step. So let's have a look. I'm going to just show you the free space once we've finished copying. If we look at our main partition, 8.5 gig used, so the actual data is only 8.5 gig, and that's what I want to show you the difference. Our partition 250, 230 available, 20 is missing, and our data is 8.5. Or if you want to use this as a better example, remember it's gigabytes versus what do they call it? It's basically the one that gigabytes used to be divisible by 1.024, and then they ended up doing the rounding one, which is what I think disks does, because this is actually meant to be 256. But anyways, so you can see we are missing 15 there, and our data is only occupying 8.5. So where's the rest of the data gone? So what I'm going to do now, just to get a bit of an example of what you guys can expect, I'm going to install a couple of applications, probably Thunderbird, graphical programs, maybe LibreOffice, etc., etc. While this is busy, I thought I might as well mention the gist of what we're going to do, the steps that we're going to follow. And the first one is, this is your 𝗚𝗲𝘁 partition. This is where the menu will be installed that will pick up all the other operating systems you might have. So the most I've ever run on my machine at any point in time was around, I think I had about 9 operating systems running on here. For this example, what do we need to be concerned about? We concern ourselves with the boot 𝗚𝗲𝘁 partition and our root. In this case, our root and our home happens to be on the exact same partition. Technically, it's a little bit more challenging if you want to have them on separate partitions. I can do it. It's not a problem, but hopefully from this video you guys will understand how to do it yourselves. I used to, back in the days, have my root on one partition and my home on another partition. But, yeah. Right, so I was going to install the via command line, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and select raw therapy. Going to install that one. I don't know if I can just tick these and it should select them all, and then I can click apply once. So let's have a look. The one we want is LibreOffice, and we'll go with that one there. It's a bit big. Alright, here's what it is. I'll speed up the video for you guys. Another one that I use is Darktable. Excellent program. So it's raw therapy, and can't use KDE without Kdenlive. So we're going to do Kdenlive, and I think that's it for now. Alright, while that's actually installing, let's go ahead and prepare our file system. So let's assume all of this is finished at this point. We'll have a look at the free space when we're done, just before we do the actual copy over. But we want to now go from ext4, and we're going to go to this partition over here, and we're going to go to, I think, someone requested XFS, and okay, we'll go ext4 to XFS, and then we'll go on to BTRFS. Pretty much the same thing. So assume we haven't done this part yet. We're going to go ahead and do it now again, and we're going to call this now 0x, so that we can have one as 0f, which we know is okay, we'll call f the one with f2fs. 0x for XFS. We don't click this erase. That will take forever. I think one of the users I saw there was saying, oh no, it takes forever using disks. Disks is fast. It's the same as the command line. Just don't click erase system. It's not necessary. It's basically a full format versus a quick format in Windows. So we're going to go ahead and just format this again. The reason I also prefer formatting with the newest file system is, let's say for example you were upgrading or you wanted to install Ubuntu, something with an older kernel onto XFS or ext4. Using Arch, generally you'll have a newer kernel and the latest file system versions. So if you format with the latest file system or the latest kernel, chances are it might not work properly with the older file system. So if I installed Ubuntu straight onto this XFS partition, without formatting it with Ubuntu, you might run into problems with XFS being upgraded. So that might be, that's something you must keep in mind when doing this. Alright, but anyways, as you can see, the format is done. Vida is still downloading. While we're here, we can actually have a look at the speed it takes to format each one. Let's go ahead and do this again. Let's do 0f for f2fs. Let's see how long this one takes. This is a matter of interest while we're busy. I'm not fast forwarding this. This is genuine how long it takes. So we can see here, that was relatively quick. And I think the slowest one to format is ext4. Let's have a look here. BTRFS, as far as I know, is quite quick to format. You can see how long ext4 is taking here. Okay, done. And let's go for BTRFS. So we just call this 0b. Oops, sorry. Yeah, that was much quicker than ext4. Probably similar to the others. Right. Go back for our X. What I'm showing you here is the same from any file system to any file system. You might, ZFS might give you, you'll have some different dependencies, but yeah, pretty much the same thing. Okay, we're almost done with our downloads, and let's prep. Everything's applied. Now we're going to do this here, and let's have a look at our free space. Our file system's got 228 gig free with these applications installed. I'm going to go ahead and copy some videos and photos from my timeshift backup into my documents and music folders, so that we've got a more realistic idea of how much free space will actually be left over in, if you're using this as a daily driver. Right, so we have copied, in terms of music, about 8 gig. Right, so we've booted up our install. We open up terminal quickly, run as root, and we're going to make a new folder and an old folder. We'll mount the ext4 partition into the old folder, and then we will mount the XFS partition into the new folder. Right, mounted. Let's open up another window quickly. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to monitor every 5 seconds the free space and occupied space of all the mounted partitions. So as you can see here, our old partition, which is ext4, has 222 gig free, and our new partition has 255 gig free. But look at the size. Even though they're identical partitions, ext4 shows 251 gig and XFS shows 256 gig. So already we are losing capacity by using ext4. So we rsync from the old to the new, preserve permissions and archive. Those are the parameters. And you can see the occupied space going up on the new folder. So it shouldn't take too long to copy 20 gig. Okay, almost done. And this is done real time. There is no fast forwarding here. Alright, we have finished. So let's have a look at the free space. XFS is showing 253 gig free, ext4 shows 250 gig free. Right, so the next part is to chroot into our new folder so that we can set up the boot sectors, etc., or the EFI partitions. Okay, we've logged into our new folder. Let's get the device location of our boot EFI, and we're going to mount it. Remember, we have now chrooted. That means we've logged in to that new folder as if we actually as if we booted up from it. Right, so mounted. Now, you don't have to do this on every single operating system, but we just do this in case. Is we mount the EFI vars. Generally, I think on 0 they will be mounted, so we'll probably get an error. There we go. I made a typo there quickly. Let me fix that. There we go. But as you can see, it's already mounted, so not a problem. Next step is quite easy. So this is to install the Grub manager into the EFI partition. We have to specify the target. We're going to give it a name shortly. You'll see now it will all make sense. We're going to call this one 0x. Right, installed, no errors. The next part is we can do an update grub, but if you don't have the alias, I'm going to show you what you type in now. Okay, you'll see in here now. We're going to basically make the config. Now, on a lot of distributions, this is known as update-grub. I think on Ubuntu, Arco, they have an alias for this. As you can see, it found our ext4 version of 0. The next part is we're going to update our FS tab and tell it which is our root partition. So we're just going to quickly find here, because that's too much info to look at. Okay, and I want to show you now that the UUID here in the command line is exactly the same as the one in disks. So I'm showing you two ways of doing the same thing. Okay, let's edit our FS tab. We're going to paste our UUID. As you can see, it's still mapped to the old UUID. So we've got to map this to the correct UUID. Chop. Just fix that. There we go. Right, next thing we want to verify our BTRFS. You can see that remains unchanged. So we're going to have, we can basically boot up the ext4 or the XFS1, and whichever one can be the master. We'll also change the file system of the root from ext4 to XFS, and we just change the 1 to a 0. Okay, saved, all done. Control X to quit. Just run the update one more time. You don't have to do this, or you could have skipped the first one after doing the FS tab. Right, we're going to boot up now. Let's have a look. This is our 0x, and we've got an ext4 one. Again, sorry for the background rain. Now we can go ahead and open up our disks. You can verify that we have booted up off the right partition. You can see we're now running on XFS. We were running on ext4, and it really is as simple as that. And you can have a look at the programs that we installed. So Kdenlive is here. That's fresh run. Everything looks good. Our calc is here. What's it? Raw therapy. Everything's here exactly as we left off. And why this is so cool is now you can test out your machine with all your programs installed. Everything's set up the way you like it. Your Steam games. Every single thing. You set it up, configure it, and then you can muck around with different file systems till the cows come home. So all looks good. So I was going to do another one which shows it going to F2FS, but basically it's the same sort of thing. So in this case I would now just format this partition. Let's call it 0F, and we go ahead format F2FS. Goes ahead and does its format. Okay, done. Once again, we'd boot off our live USB, and we would just do an rsync from this old to the new, and we would update the FS tab with the new UUID. We use the same EFI. We do a grub install. We run an update grub equivalent, which is that grub make config with a -o for the output, and boot up, and you could call that 0F. Then in our boot menu, when we press F11, we would have 0x, 0F. So we've got two identical Xero distributions or installs, both running different file systems, but technically identical up until the point where you start booting and changing, installing different apps on each one. And that's how you pretty much cloning your file system without cloning, really. Right, you can see we're copying from the old to the new, from XFS to F2FS. You can see we've got 234 gig free on F2FS and 236 free on XFS. Another nice thing that once we've ch rooted into the previous install, you can just press up arrow to select the commands that we typed in earlier, so you don't have to retype out everything. So once you've done this type of file system migration once, it's really simple thereafter. You might need to install F2FS tools. Right. So we've just booted up our F2FS version, and if we go ahead and have a look here, open up disks, there we go, we've booted up off F2FS.